She had understood the situation to do that. Ayla knew nothing but the name of her enemy, Byron, just a name. I didn't even know what his last name was. It was really absurd. After all these years, the only information she had about this man she had called her father was his name, and she only heard it from someone else shortly before his death. 2 years later, the Duke's daughter disappeared. For 14 years she lived as Byron's daughter until she returned to the manor at the age of 16. She cursed herself for only knowing about his favorite drink, his favorite food, and how to make him happy and get his fix. She realized that these were the only things she knew about him, while remaining oblivious to his true identity. She couldn't be that pathetic. However, it was very different from its previous existence. He was aware of who he was and who his true enemy was. At least he would no longer be influenced by that demon, Byron. "Miss, are you sure you're not falling asleep? What's taking you so long? If you do this, your master will be angry," Laura urged, knocking on the old door with the intention of knocking it down. It seemed like it wouldn't even give him time to collect his thoughts. The truth is that nothing changed when she was left alone in that room with her thoughts. He lacked sufficient knowledge and had no idea of his age or location at the time. "I'll be out soon." Ayla, who responded to Laura, poured cold water on her face. When the icy water made contact with his face, he felt a jolt to his senses. The sensation was so strong that it made her feel truly alive. Ayla dried her face with the towel Laura left on the table and then changed the clothes placed next to the towel. It was a riding-style training uniform that he always wore when he was young. After taking a deep breath and mentally preparing herself, she left the room and was greeted by a grumbling Laura. "Why the hell are you so late? Don't want to train early in the morning? Why are you doing something different than usual?" "Miss, I have no choice but to notify your teacher if this happens. I wonder how disappointed your father will be in you." Even as she grew up, Laura always acted as if she were her teacher. Since Ayla arrived at the Duke's residence, nothing had changed. Laura maintained an appropriate demeanor in public, but her true self emerged when she was alone. At first, it didn't seem strange to see only Laura and Byron's subordinates. But when she noticed that the dukedom staff actually cared about her, she felt extremely strange. If Ayla was really Byron's daughter, she wouldn't have been treated like this. Even if they didn't follow her wholeheartedly like the people of the duchy did, they would at least give her some human respect. "Are you listening to me?" "Yeah. I'm listening." If she had been in the past, she would have been uneasy and looked at Laura's observation. According to Byron, the most terrifying thing in the world was self-disappointment. No, it was possible that he hadn't moved slowly at first. However, it was possible that Laura had noticed and scolded her for it. Laura seemed taken aback by Ayla's appearance, which was different from usual. Since until yesterday the dog obediently wagged its tail depending on its owner's mood, the sudden refusal to listen to commands could be attributed to a specific situation. "Okay, let's talk about the dog." Ayla was little more than a hunting dog to Byron. Get rid of him when the hunt is over and chase after his dog. She was so stupid that she didn't realize that her owner was trying to get rid of her while her tail was wagging. Currently, things had changed. He behaved like a naughty puppy and looked for any opportunity to nibble on his owner's neck. However, outwardly he continued to act the same and wag his tail. Who is this man, Byron? She needs to determine his motives. Every single thing he did was too suspicious to say that he was just trying to assassinate a duke. Only when I blindly trusted him did I have no idea. Now that he thought about it, it was quite suspicious. Although the attack took place at the height of Ayla's birthday party, it was unexpected and successful against the duke's household. She had learned a lot about the dukedom while posing as a princess for 2 years. According to what he had learned, the Weishafen duchy had done an excellent job of protecting the Palace Empire and had a large number of knights and troops. The mansion in which he lived, located in the capital, had magnificent fortifications. However, she was not as robust as the knights who guarded the vast northern region of the empire. He appointed several skilled knights to protect his mansion. But it was strange that someone with this level of military power could overcome that defense while hiding in a living room and acting like a thief. And there was something more suspicious. Byron lived a luxurious lifestyle despite being in a desolate place. Where does your constant wealth come from? When I was young, I had no knowledge of economics. However, after receiving an education as a princess in a duke's household, she was able to understand the high cost of the items Byron wore, consumed, and used. There is definitely something. Something I don't know. Ayla thought that and clenched her fists. The sky was still dark as Laura led her out of the ancient fortress, indicating that it would be a while before the sun rose. He looked around, but all he could see were dense, endless forests and tall mountains. When he remembered his childhood, it was always like this. In an unknown forest. They hid in abandoned forts or mountain shelters and left every few months in search of another place. It would be difficult for a boy to escape this forest, much less become a duke, even if Byron was killed. Even if he rode a horse, it seemed like he had to travel for a full day to see it. It would be impossible since at first I couldn't ride a horse. It was extremely funny now that I thought about it. Although Byron raised Ayla to be a human weapon, he did not teach her to ride a horse. It was very likely that he had done it to prevent her escape, to tie his feet to his side. From the beginning, Ayla grew up completely trusting Byron and never even thought about leaving him. Although it is still morning, the atmosphere is a bit hot. Is it summer? He looked for clues to deduce how old he was and what his situation was. His memory wasn't bad, but since he lived in so many places with similar environments, it was difficult to know what time it was based solely on his surroundings. At first glance, he looked to be about 11 or 12 years old, but I couldn't be sure. It would be nice to have some clues. However, it was probably not a mistake to assume that the season was summer. He was wearing fine clothes that Laura had bought him and the water he used to wash was cold. Although Laura and her subordinates treated her badly, she did not neglect her food, clothing, or health. Most likely, she was being raised for murder as well. I couldn't develop a strong physique, no matter how hard I trained, if I ate poorly. Another reason would have been to take care of one's health. Are you here, miss? How long did she walk like that, lost in her thoughts? Ayla could see a face she had not seen in a long time. It was Cloud, his teacher and Byron's loyal shadow. For Cloud, it was a face he saw every day, but for Ayla, who had not seen him during the 2 years she lived in the Duke's mansion, it had been a long time since she had seen that face. Unlike Laura, who looked down on Ayla, Cloud seemed to treat her quite humanely, but she wasn't happy to see him after a long time. It was unclear how much Cloud knew, but in any case, he was participating in deceiving and using her. He's late. Did she at least fall asleep? Sorry, I'm late. It was not a demanding tone. But Ayla, who could no longer arouse Laura and Cloud's suspicions, hid her true feelings and apologized. The sky wasn't completely lit yet, so why did they say it was so late? As if she knew that she was going to be scolded, Laura glared at her, who apologized with a dejected face and then returned inside the fort, saying that she would help prepare the food. He has to eat with his teacher, so he will only do physical training in the morning. Weapons training will take place after dinner, Cloud said quietly. It may not have been a big deal to him, but to her it was a pretty decisive clue. Weapons training? He realized something and looked at his hands again. He had overlooked them before without thinking, but there were fresh wounds all over his little hands. It was around the summer, when Ayla turned 12, that she began using weapons such as daggers and bows, having received only basic physical training. As it was his first time handling a gun, He remembered the hardships he suffered from injuries here and there. Sometimes she was bruised by being hit by the bowstring and other times she was injured by the sharp blade of a dagger. It felt strange to see the wounds again, which had healed so long ago that not even a scar remained. So now I'm 12 years old. She was 12 years old. There were 4 years until he could go to the Duke. 4 years was a long time for Ayla, who wanted to go back to her parents and apologize for what she had done, but if you thought about it, it could be a good thing. During those years, all Ayla needed was to find out exactly what Byron's plan was. Her hands covered in wounds, Ayla clenched her fist tightly.